The last thing I wanted to share today, it's along the same lines as this, and I just thought I'd put them both out around the same time, see what happens. But recently, Pete Hegseth shared a tweet from a fellow by the name of Doug Wilson, and Doug Wilson is an influential Christian preacher along a very, very specific denominational line, non-denominational line, I should say. He's one of these Christian nationalists, and he is an unapologetic Christian nationalist. He believes that Christians are the only ones that should have any kind of power. Let me rephrase that. He believes that Christian men are the only ones that have any kind of power. And he believes that women shouldn't have the right to vote. He believes that the 19th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution should be repealed. He believes women have a place, and it is at home with the children, and that's what they are good for. I want to say he once even said he didn't think having babies required a lot of skill. I think that's what he said recently in an interview. I don't believe having babies requires a lot of skill. Anyhow, he recently did an interview, and he talked about Muslims in a Christian country. So he's talking about the United States and the United States becoming a Christian country, and he said, he was asked about, well, what about Muslims? Should we allow Muslims into a Christian country? He said, well, for visitation purposes, sure, that's not a big deal. But as far as Muslims living amongst us, he said, no, not in any numbers. Not in any numbers, because it's going to be a problem of integration, and he has at other times he's also said that only Christians should be able to take on positions of power. But my sense is, in listening to him about this, it was that if Muslims were to come into the country in any kind of number, even if they didn't have quote unquote power, they would have influence just by virtue of their numbers, by their mass, and not necessarily in the voting booth, but in mentality. So Christians would find themselves being influenced by these Muslims, by these Muslim communities, by these Muslim voices, by this Muslim understanding, these Muslim theologies, whatever the case might be. And we don't want that. We want that limited. Maybe one family coming in, sure, small numbers that they couldn't influence the Christians of the community, but would be influenced by the Christians of the community, perhaps. But that's to me the thing is part of the thing that he really gets wrong. Now, again, he talks about Muslims because that's what the question was, but this would be true for any group, any faith group, any faith group. Would fall into this category. Any group without faith would fall into this category because they're not Christians. And if they're not Christians, they might be a bad influence on Christians. Right? It's protectionism. You've heard the term protectionism before. That's what this is. We must stay cloistered together in order to protect. Usually it's in order to protect our children from the world. And this, oh my God, sadly, it's not an uncommon characteristic of some churches. We're gonna stick together, because if we stick together, nobody can get to us. No other teaching can find its way in, can worm its way in. And if those teachings are kept at bay, then we can stay who we are, loud and proud and never going anywhere. Never learning anything new, never being challenged. We can hold to what it is we believe with confidence, not because what we believe is absolutely perfect, but because there's just no way for us to hear anything different. We don't hear the questions and we don't hear the challenges. Protectionism, and ultimately I think Christian nationalism does speak to this, where Christian nationalism would say we must be of a particular ilk. We must be of this particular faith. And again, depending on who you're talking to, some will say it's not even just Christian, it's Protestantism. is the way they want to go. And by Protestantism, they mean those denominations that they consider to be Protestant, those denominations that take on certain beliefs or hold to certain creeds or hold to certain doctrine, and everybody else would be there's something else. They're perhaps progressive Christians we don't let in, and the Orthodox Christians, while it's nice for them to be here, we won't let them have a say. Protectionism is not of Christ. It's not of Christ. I've argued before. I suspect I will argue till I'm blue in the face. Jesus' way was one of progression. You see it in his teachings. You hear it in his words. It's one of progression. You've heard it say this. Well, I say it's that and this and more. You've heard it say that. Well, I say it's that and more on top of that. Jesus' way was one of challenge, and it was one of growth, and it was one of courage. It really was. Like, I haven't given this a whole lot of thought, but I wonder if Jesus is one of the more famous deconstructionists, a person who is willing to break their faith down and find a deeper truth to it, find a deeper meaning to it. And it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength to be willing to do that. And so when Jesus tells us to go out into the world to make disciples of all nations, and Jesus tells us that you're to go out and you're to be a follower of mine, you're to live like a follower of mine. That's how people will know you, right? They will know you because you look and sound and behave like me. They will know you are my follower by the way you love one another. They will know you're my follower by the way you're willing to sacrifice for one another. So we go out into the world being the hands and feet of Jesus Christ, alive and active in this world. And I think that was Bonhoeffer's description of the church. That's who we're supposed to be. We're out there in the world being the hands and feet of Jesus Christ, alive and active in the world. There's no room for isolationism. There's no room for protectionism. We're supposed to be bold and courageous out there among the people. We're not afraid of their influence on us, because what we believe is that we're supposed to be like Jesus. What we believe is that we're supposed to live like Jesus. What we believe is that we are supposed to love like Jesus. And so when we find ourselves in another culture, we find ourselves confronting. I don't mean when we find ourselves out there in the world, when we find ourselves face to face with another culture, we find ourselves face to face with another religion, with another faith tradition, I'm not worried about what it is I'm going to learn about them or about their ways or about their faith or about their doctrine, because the person I'm supposed to be isn't going to be changed by anything like that. I mean, unless you bump into a religion that says you're supposed to hate everybody, or you bump into a religion that says you're supposed to kill everybody, or you bump into a religion that says you're supposed to be selfish, you're supposed to look out for numero uno, unless you find yourself face to face with a religion that tells you that you're not supposed to love your neighbor, you're supposed to be afraid of your neighbor. That's the only time that you're going to bump into a religious teaching that might take you from Christ. Not for nothing, which is part of the problem with modernity right now. We're bumping into a culture, our own culture, that tells us we're supposed to be greedy, that tells us we're supposed to look out for number one, that tells us we're supposed to be afraid of everybody that looks, breathes, acts, worships, loves differently than ourselves. We don't have to be afraid of We don't have to be afraid of others coming in. I mean, my God, we've been given an opportunity here in Canada. We've been given an opportunity. I don't even have to go abroad anymore to share the gospel. I don't have to go abroad anymore to be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ alive and active in the world in some foreign country. I can do it right here. I mean, they're coming to me. How much easier does it get? I don't have to, travel 10,000 miles, sleeping in a tent to do this work. I can do it right here. I can be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ alive and active in this world right here. I can sleep in my own bed tonight and do that job as a missionary. So when people like Doug Wilson talk about this kind of thing, I wonder, where did they lose the plot? Where did they forget that we're supposed to be the influencers? We're not supposed to protect ourselves from anybody. We're supposed to be willing to go out there and show the people we encounter who Jesus Christ is, how Jesus Christ lived, how Jesus Christ behaved. We're supposed to go out there and show the world what Jesus Christ taught us and how Jesus Christ taught us to live and to give and to love. No, we wouldn't want to be unduly influenced by a great number of people coming in of the same faith. Coward. Absolute coward. How could a person like that ever possibly, with a straight face, talk about evangelism? And how do you evangelize? How do you evangelize without going and being amongst others? Without going and being amongst people who are different? We can't be this way, people. We can't be this way. We must never, ever turn inward. That is not Jesus's way. We must never become isolationists. We must never become protectionists. We must be willing to let go, to be bold, to be courageous. We've got to be willing to listen. We've got to be willing to explore. And we've got to be adventurous in our faith. We have to be willing to go out there into the world and be appreciative of what we bump into, who we bump into, to be appreciative of their faith, to be appreciative of their ways. Again, I don't think I've talked about it in a long time. One of my favorite stories from Acts is Paul, and he goes to, I want to say he's in Athens, and he goes to the marketplace, and he looks around and he sees all these different gods. And he finds the one that's unnamed, right? They would put one up without a name just so that no god thought they were slighted. Oh, that must be me. And he said, "Oh, you people have such faith. Look at all these gods. You people have such faith. And you have one for my God, the unnamed God. Let me tell you about my God. Let me show you who my God is." Not threatened. He's not threatened because the teachings of Jesus transcend religion. There's nothing to be threatened about. No encounter can shatter our religion because we're not even supposed to have a religion. We're supposed to be people of faith. We're supposed to believe that we're living the right life. Nothing to do with doctrine or canon. Let's be bold. Let's be courageous. Let's continue to look outward. Let's continue to wonder about how we can next go out into the world amongst friends and strangers alike, being the hands and feet of Jesus Christ, alive and active, without fear that we'll be turned, without fear that we'll be influenced unduly in the wrong directions. Confident that Jesus will always lead us in the right directions. as long as we keep our focus on him. Amen.